PM, my parish, my development, my life.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archive stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, every story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
It's amazing that you are still with us here on Good Morning Uganda. Now get a hold of your cup of coffee or tea and enjoy the program as it goes along. This is our newsreel. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and today we are speaking 5 years of Africa Free Trade Area. Now we will be examining the impact on youth livelihoods, and I'll be speaking to Asimwe Mogomia, very African, and he is the Senior Program Officer, Youth for Tax Justice Network. So come along with me, let's have this conversation. Stick around so that we learn a thing or two. Good morning, Asimwe, and you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning, Monica, and good morning, Uganda. So I am called Asimwe Ugumia, and I am a Senior Programs Officer with the Youth for Tax Justice Network, in short, YTJN, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you.
Thank you.
Now, looking at 5 years of Africa Free Trade Area, can you briefly explain to us what the African Continental Free Trade Area stands for and what its main objectives are?
All right, thank you very much. So the African Continental Free Trade Area, which in form is AFCFTA, is an agreement that was signed in Kigali, Rwanda, at an AU conference in around 2018, but it came into force in May 2019. So we have been using it from May 2019, and I think it has already made its 5 years. So this is a continental free trade area that provides for, the main objective really is to provide for how people in Africa can trade freely their goods and services. So the whole idea is, you can compare it to like COMESA, but COMESA is only for a small group of Africans, but the African Continental Free Trade Area is entirely meant for the whole of Africa as a continent. Mm-hmm. So here we get to move our goods, and the objective really, we haven't yet met all those objectives, but that is the idea behind, that we move our goods, services. As Africans, we trade with each other freely without the normal restrictions. After all, we are one people. Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea behind it.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, and let's look at the significance. How significant is the FCTFTA, that is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, to Africa's economic growth and development, especially for the youth?
So it's a very important question that we, as Africans, we get to ask to learn how to trade with each other, how to relate with each other, how to work together. And in all cases, working together has always brought good positive results.
Yes.
And these positive results can be socially, they can be economically, they can be politically. But the whole idea is that we grow together as a people without restricting and without having to conflict with each other, since we are all one people from one continent. So for the youth, for the young people, you see, Africa is demographically the youngest continent in the world. We have majority of our people are between 15 to 35, where as the youth we are. So the youth being the largest people in Africa, and we feel that as WETGN, we feel that they should be the ones to be at the forefront of enforcing and benefiting from the AFCFTA. So we feel that there's a whole lot of opportunities that if only they knew, they could tap in and benefit from. And once they grow themselves economically, being that there are many, they'll also grow the other people who are around them, and the whole society as a whole grows together.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, 5 years in.
Yes.
The pertinent question here, how has the Africa Continental Free Trade Area impacted the youth in terms of employment and entrepreneurship?
So there has been both positive and negative impact, but I think largely it is a positive impact, and it's a good thing that we have now a continental free trade area where we can deal together as Africans. It's largely a positive impact. So how the youth have benefited so far is, you see, we have like ICT infrastructure so far in Africa. Someone can sit here in Uganda and attend classes in Libya. Someone can sit here in Uganda and do work like consultancy and offer services or even goods without having to go there themselves. But it grows you, whoever is doing that grows them economically. And the agreement itself provides for removing all those custom and tariffs and barriers that would ordinarily stop someone from benefiting. So when barriers are gone, you have not yet achieved that yet, but that's what you're working towards. As of, remember in COVID, we had an issue to do with the maize that was going to Kenya, especially for us Ugandans. And we have a lot of young people in those businesses exporting maize to Kenya. But when Kenya blocked our maize with having their own issues, we had to employ methods like negotiation, employ methods like a dialogue with the Kenyans, and we got to understand why they would not want to, what issues they had with our products, and then we work on our products, and in the end, they get what they want, and we also get to improve the quality of what we are providing. So that's one example can show you that every time we work together as a people, we benefit, we improve what we are supplying, and also the other people we are dealing with also get what they want. So in the broad spectrum, it's a good thing to have, and the youth should always look out for information. They should always look out to get to know more about the AFCFTA. I know 5 years, it is still a young document. Yes, honestly, it is still a young document. But it's not, we should not just sit back, and these things have been put in place for us. When our governments send representatives to these AU meetings to discuss and come up with these agreements on our behalf, we should, as a young population, we should also be keen to know what can we contribute first, as YTGN, we feel that if the young people, because we are the majority, if the young people contribute more, there could be a huge economic impact for themselves and for the people around them. So it's a good thing to have, although we still have a long way to go.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, there is a long way to go. Now, there is rising concern that when we talk about trade, especially for the case of Uganda, let's say, our main focus is on our immediate neighbors, like Kenya, Tanzania, maybe DRC now, and some East African member countries. But mainly, we look at our immediate neighbors, especially Kenya and Tanzania, and maybe Rwanda. How can you help Ugandans, but especially the youth, to actually cast their nets wider? There are products we have in Uganda like coffee, like tea, that we can export to other countries like Egypt. But when you look at our level of trade between us and some of these other African countries, it's rather minimal. So how do we improve that?
Thank you very much for that question. How we can improve trading with other people who are not... You see, Uganda is a landlocked country.
Yes.
And that is why we mainly look at our immediate neighbors to access the ocean and trade from there. But there is much more, especially if you now stop thinking about Uganda as just one country. There is much more to the world and now to the continent. So the African Continental Free Trade Area, so far, out of the 55 African countries, it so far has been signed by 54 of them. So clearly it's a very big majority.
Yes.
The one country remaining cannot even control so much. So there is a very big, wide portion of opportunities where you can move our goods, we can move our services, we can trade with them, benefit from them. And there is a lot that is out there for us to tap into. So how can we help the young people? We are setting in place, as YTGN now, we have started working with other organizations, especially from other countries. Now, like we have set in place an MOU with Ikoyaka, it's an organization in South Africa, where we work together to involve young people. It's also an organization for young people. So we work together, and every time you partner with someone, you involve with someone, you learn something from them, they also learn something from you. And the more we learn from each other, the more we get to know, we get to improve ourselves. There in all times, every time you interact with another person, there is always improvement. That's our motto. Every time you interact with another person, there is always improvement. So that improvement helps us to grow as people, and we are encouraging the young people here in Uganda to always look out for those opportunities, look out for information, find out what you can do, find out what more you can learn, and it's always a better thing for you as an individual and also for the people around you.
All right. Well, 5 years of Africa Free Continental Trade Area, we are looking at its impact on youth livelihoods. When you look at a country like Uganda, 70% of our population is reported to be the youth, and it even gets lower and shows that around 50% of our population is between the ages of 0 to 17. So when we look at Free Continental Trade Area, the biggest question is always, where are the youth, or how are they benefiting from this venture? How are they being helped to understand trade and also to be involved, to sink their feet into the waters of trade? That's what we are looking at today, and I am having this conversation with Asimwe Mugumya, who is the Senior Program Officer, Youth for Tax Justice Network. Now, Asimwe, what we know today is that the world has become a digital village. And with that, it means that you cannot skip technology in any venture. So how are we including technology to still interest the youth in matters trade, or to even help them get better opportunities like trade agreements and whatnot?
Thank you very much, Olive, for that question. So the role of technology should never be downplayed at any rate.
Yes.
Because it shows where we have come from. Yeah, there was a time of Stone Age, but how as humanity we have kept developing. And even where we are now is not the final destination. We are still going to continue developing. So when you look at the young population being the majority, and also when you look at the role of technology, we should involve these young people, train them, let's say, at areas of institutions of learning, train them into this, to learn how to use the technology, to develop technology skills, and then they get to use those skills to interact with other young people around the continent. So this helps us in the way that in future, when the technology develops, the young people that have been growing with it will also be in position to adjust accordingly. But in terms of matters of trade in goods and services, it makes trade a whole lot easier than having to traverse the whole continent by oneself. Here, because of technology, you can easily sell your services to countries like Ghana without even having to go there. You see, we are in East Africa, Ghana is on the other side of West Africa, and now there has been developments where like the Ghanaian president recently, this month,
Yes.
the Ghanaian president allowed all people with an African passport to enter his country without a visa. So that means transportation is easier. Students can always go there. You don't have to go and hassle applying for a visa, sitting down for 6 months. You can easily go to Ghana and learn. But there's a lot, not just the examples I'm giving. Because remember, this AfCFTA is concerning 54 countries out of the 55 on the continent. So there is a lot that we can always benefit from the others, and there's a lot they can always benefit from us. It is not good to lock ourselves outside and be comfortable in the comfort zone. We should just break out of the comfort zone. Let's go and see the unfamiliar. And we shall be better at the end of the day.
I like that you bring Ghana into this conversation, because the other biggest problem that Africa's trade is facing are the border controls, the need for a visa to enter many African countries. I think in East Africa, the other country I know that has free, that is visa-free is Rwanda. And for other African countries. So what do you see? How do you see the future of travel? I mean, I'll give you an example. Ugandans say that it's easier to get a visa to Europe than to get a visa to South Africa, right? That's what I've heard. I stand to be corrected. And you look at that, it's people would like to trade with it, and other African countries. So yes, Ghana's done well, but where do you see the future of open borders when it comes to Africans traveling and trading with other African countries? Because it's still a big hindrance.
Thank you very much for that. The issue of borders is a big problem. Even just an issue of closing borders recently, it had disturbed our relationship with Rwanda, but that was sorted.
Yes.
And now you see countries, Rwanda was the first one, now Ghana has come up, countries coming to open up their borders to fellow African countries. That's a step in the right direction. Although, like I said, the agreement is still very young, 5 years, but if you project it in the future, I feel that more countries will come out and be open to their fellow African countries to remove these visa restrictions. The challenge with the visa restrictions is most of them that's where the governments earn from. Like when you say it is easier to go to Europe than to go to South Africa, because that application for visa, you have to pay some money. That is where the governments
But
earn
when
from.
I come into your country, I'm spending.
Yes,
on hotels, like I'm spending, I'm bringing in money.
Yes, they agree you're going to spend.
Yeah.
But remember, the government has to make the money first. Before even you go to spend on the hotel, the government should know that if this person who's coming is bringing some value to us. I think it's also a way of curbing down unnecessary travel, which is not really, we're not looking at it as, it's not a good thing. Okay? we should open our borders, all of us. That's why the AFCTFA was signed. But 5 years down the road, we can see that only 2 African countries have opened their borders to everyone after 5 years.
Yes.
So we think that in the future, the countries will keep adding themselves to the list.
Okay.
But it helps where there's no restrictions, there's a better chance of growth. There's also the opposite side of the AFCTFA requires governments to invest in trade. So now you have an agreement here that the government has signed that is encouraging another government to invest in trade, so that its people and also the people it's trading with can benefit. But now, where will the government get that money from? If you're asking the same government to restrict, to reduce on customs, to reduce on that money because that's where they earn the money from. Every time you're exporting something, you pay customs, and it goes to the consolidated fund of that particular government. So every time they reduce on the customs, it's reduced revenue for that government, and it creates a conflict of here government is losing revenue, but here on the other hand, it needs to spend on investing in trade. But those are some of the small issues that we face, and we call upon our governments to involve the young people so that we find solutions to some areas like that.
Yes.
We can find creative solutions around them.
Creative solutions. Well, let's have a look at the small, medium enterprises. These are mostly owned by the youth, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how has the FCFTA affected small, medium enterprises, and are they thriving or struggling under the agreement?
As of this moment, the medium and small enterprises are still struggling. We have statistics that show that, for example, in Uganda, most of those small businesses do not make their first birthday. People start businesses at a very high rate, but within a year, they have closed.
Why? Why are they not seeing their first birthday?
So that is one of the challenges that we have to face and we have to address, because most of these, you see, there's a general problem of unemployment among the young people. So to run away from that problem, we got to start businesses, and initially maybe the young people are unprepared, or maybe there's a problem of finances, or maybe there's a problem of requirements around how to trade, getting licenses, all those issues, getting export and import licenses, and that is what we are here to address. So one of our roles is to help the young people to be able to address those issues and guide them in all those legal matters. So the idea, the objective behind all this is to have thriving, informed, and prosperous young people. Where they are having issues, we help them and we find a way to address those issues. The role of the AFCTFA in the businesses in enhancing medium and small enterprises is that the AFCTFA provides that it allows people to trade cross-border freely. It is not yet in effect as of this moment. That's the truth. Because like we said earlier, there are only 2 countries where, in the whole of Africa, that are open to all other Africans without visa requirements. So there's a long way to go, but yes, the agreement is there, it provides for all these things. It's now up to the young people to come and we find ways of putting them in force. That is all.
Are there industries you would say have benefited from the Africa Free Continental Trade Area agreement more than others?
Yes, I would say the service industry. The service industry has benefited because services are easier to trade in as compared to goods, but also in some goods industries, I think, like people who trade in gold, because goods with high demand, either way, we'll have to find a way around it. But the service industry has benefited so far, and it continues to industry benefit. Then education, students, yes, I think even before the coming in force of this agreement, students were benefiting. As you see here in Uganda, we have a huge influx of international students.
True.
And we also have Ugandans studying outside the country. So that's an industry, and it is benefiting a great deal from such initiatives to reduce the friction between fellow African countries. Once there's reduced friction, that's the whole point. All of us as Africans, we benefit. There's no losing here.
Okay.
Yes.
So which industries, in your opinion, are playing catch-up?
The industries that are lagging behind. The industries like trading in export goods. Export goods like coffee, cotton, and some of those goods that are where they mine, the extractives industry. There's still a lot that needs to be done, but still we are here to help. Yes.
You are here to help as the Youth for Tax Justice Network.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we are focusing mainly our attention on the youth, with, as I mentioned earlier, because the youth is the majority. Once the youth are helped, the rest of the society will also benefit.
Okay. Now, the industries that you did talk about and say they are doing well, like the service industry, how is it engaging the youth?
So one of the issues I talked in the service industry, one of the ones I pointed out was education.
Yes.
So you find that most of I think a very big majority of those who benefit from the education industry are youth. Although that's not to negate the ones offering the services, but the ones who benefit from the services are usually youth. And whenever young people are allowed to travel and maybe learn, when you travel to learn, you engage with other cultures and grow, it changes those young people themselves. So now they come back to the original countries, and they impact the societies where they originally came from. And it also creates connections between them and where they went. It's a form of exchange. And like I said, these are the people that are going to, they are still growing. So it keeps, and also they are the majority workforce. So if they learn practices from other countries, they learn new trade skills, it helps to increase the quality of the products that they are producing, the quality of the services, and improve the trade relations between those two countries. And trade relations and improved quality is a win-win for everyone.
Okay. Well, we are looking at 5 years of Africa Free Continental Trade Area. You can join the conversation through WhatsApp number 0709-602-592. I'm having this conversation with Asimwe Mugumya, who is the Senior Program Officer, Youth for Tax Justice Network. He's helped us understand what has already been done as far as the Africa Free Continental Trade Area is concerned, and how the youth have benefited from this, but also the areas that are still struggling and those that are thriving. Now, Asimwe, I would like for us to look more into the challenges and the limitations of this agreement. First of all, when still we are on the youth, African youth, what are some of the main challenges they are facing in accessing the opportunities created by the agreement?
Thank you very much, Olive. One of the biggest challenges is access to information about the agreement. We have a very huge percentage of youth out there that don't even know this agreement exists. Then there is youth involvement. When our governments are discussing policies to do with agreements of this nature, we do not see a lot of youth involvement. Yet, like for example, here in Uganda, we have a National Youth Council. We also have that could be involved and also could also seek opinions from the youth. And remember, these are the people that benefit the most. Like we said earlier about SMEs, these are the people that are usually behind the SMEs. So there is need to have youth involvement a lot in the policies, and also while coming up with policies that affect anything to do with the youth.
Okay. Now, there is an issue among the barriers. There is access to finance, and then technology, and we already talked about the cross-border trading, knowledge.
Yes.
How are young people supposed to, first of all, know about these things? Where are they supposed to get the information that you talked about that they do not have? But also, how is, for instance, your network, how is it addressing these?
So as a network, as YTJN, we are holding activities where we get to inform the youth, especially like students at schools, about these opportunities. Then we also help the youth, those who start up their SMEs. We also help them to regularize them. Usually the issue of access to finance and access to credit has a lot to do with being regularized and being registered with the government, so that the government is aware that you have a business here. So having registration, having licenses, we do a lot of work to help them in that area. But most of the work goes into creating awareness. Yes, so we go around spreading the awareness that we have these opportunities. Please get out of your comfort zone and take care of these opportunities.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, there is the other limitation is inadequate infrastructure when it comes to youth-led businesses. So how is that being addressed?
The issue of infrastructure is majorly a government issue.
I understand.
It's a majorly government issue.
But have you had talks, what is the government promising, or the governments under the agreement? What are they promising when it comes to that?
The agreement itself mandates its member states to put in place infrastructure that helps trade. Of course, there is already some infrastructure that is there. We have a few airports here and there. There's one that is being put in Hoima. So, and we also have the ICT that helps people to communicate all over the continent. We have students in Uganda attending classes in South Africa. There's already some existing infrastructure, but we are still engaging the government through our youth leaders. I talked earlier about the National Youth Council. We are still engaging with the Ministry of Trade to make sure that the infrastructures are improved, that they're existing, and where they are lacking, new ones are put in place. That is mainly to make sure that at the end of the day, our young people get to benefit from these initiatives.
Okay. Now, you did say that the opportunities are there. So let's look at the areas for growth. What opportunities, in your perspective and with your experience, exist within the agreement for youth to innovate, upskill, and grow their livelihoods?
The major opportunities lie in areas of goods and services. Look at professional services. I think right now there's something going on about the whole East African community, where professional services are getting to be. We have had the exchange of doctors, exchange of lawyers. Recently, we have Kenyan lawyers coming here to practice. We have Ugandan lawyers going to practice in Kenya. And all those opportunities, they hope to, first of all, improve quality. They hope to bridge the gap between the people. Usually, if someone does not like Tanzanians so much and then they get to be helped by a Tanzanian lawyer, they get to bridge the gap between the people. And that helps the whole continent as a whole. So there are opportunities in services, yes, but then there's also opportunities in goods. So the AFCFTA allows that for most of these goods that are coming from the member states to be sold in fellow member states, that the customs on those goods should be reduced. It is one of the provisions, although we still have a long way to reach there, but you see there's opportunities in such areas. So there's still opportunities, and we still call upon our young people to take advantage of these opportunities and grow themselves and the people around them.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Asimwe Mugumya. This has been an enlightening conversation. Now, what would be your parting remarks to the youth out there?
So, the youth of Uganda, we encourage you to always look out for, first of all, seek information about now the AFC FTA, and find out what, as a young person, you can do to benefit from the opportunities that exist. And wherever you are not able to help yourself, seek for assistance. But we are here to help, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Asimwe, for making the time. And we have been speaking to Asimwe Mugumya, who is the Senior Program Officer, Youth for Tax Justice Network. And we've been looking at the 5 years of Africa Free Continental Trade Area, and we're examining its impact on youth livelihoods. Now, stick around with us because the program continues. I have a message from Omugaga Saurembo in Nabweru. He says he's the MP at Dakom, Nansana Municipality, and he says abasuubuzi buli woyita bakaaba ebintu bya bbeeyi nnyo. Thank you so much, Omgaga Saurembo. But this is where our conversation will end. We will be back shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
We're going to be talking about farming, but it's not me that's going to do that.
My name is Hava K. Luanga.
My name is Larry Charles K.
Let's go!
Mixed farm is a type of farming that involves growing crops and raising livestock. This is the spice garden and for the vegetables.
My first favorite spice has to be black pepper.
What's black pepper in Uganda?
Kamulali or mudagavu.
What? We're going to talk about the sechunga. We're going to see how big it is, as big as Larry's head. And then we're going to talk about the mangada. So we're going to get there. We have still so many farms to visit, and I would like to hear from you. This is the Little Farmer Show, and we are bringing coolness back to farming. See you!
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Indicative budget allocations for the financial year 2025-2026 for various entities, including the Office of the President, State House, Office of the Prime Minister, KCCA, and others. While presenting the report to the Budget Committee of Parliament, the Presidential Affairs Committee, chaired by Alex Byarugaba, informed MPs that State House requires 88 billion shillings to facilitate the payment of pending donations,
resulting into a funding gap of Uganda shillings, 30 billion Uganda shillings. That's very terrible. And remember, most of our areas, we have something we demand in as far as the presidential pledges are concerned.
The committee established that unfulfilled presidential pledges were among the key challenges to budget execution for State House.
Unfulfilled pledges that span beyond a particular term of office may negatively also impact on the image of the fountain of honor and therefore calls for enhanced allocation.
According to the committee, State House also faces an issue with an aging fleet and the maintenance costs are rising. The committee noted that 10 billion shillings is required in the next financial year to cater for transport equipment.
State House requires Uganda shillings 10 billion, but only Uganda shillings 4 billion is provided in the MTF ceiling of Vote 002, resulting into a funding gap of Uganda shillings 6 billion. Mr. Chairman, the committee recommends that shillings 6 billion be provided to Vote 002 to facilitate the retooling.
All right, now the bits of the story that started up is Talking Matters Bankers Dialogue. Now, central banks in Africa are challenged to initiate innovative monetary policies, making frameworks to match the realities of climate-influenced economic dynamics. Now, in a dialogue organized by the Bank of Uganda and the International Monetary Fund in Kampala, the bankers stressed out on how traditional predictable monetary policy frameworks struggle to handle economic shocks posed by climate change. Now, the increasing adverse impacts of climate change are posing a serious threat to the cardinal mandate of central banks in Africa. And then most of the central banks in Africa rely on traditional monetary policies to address ever-changing monetary landscapes that are highly influenced by climate change. Now, apart from the tradition mandate of central banks like stabilizing prices, stabilizing the financial sector and economic resilience, central banks are challenged to respond to the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, creating a climate-induced volatility. Also, in the peer-to-peer dialogue that attracted bankers from different African countries and officials from the International Monetary Fund, stakeholders recommended creation of a special forum of sharing information for saving economies from climate risks. For the universal coverage and response, central banks are challenged to be innovative and also instruct institutionalization of ESG among commercial banks. Now, most of the African economies are running on the agriculture bit of things from the priorities of the sectors within their countries. Now, service-based with limited manufacturing muscle, this leaves them with high burden of importing inflation from manufacturing economies, making them incapable of controlling prices. Again, some bit of the correction now. The story that started the business up this morning was one coming in from the Budget Committee in Parliament, where the Kampala Capital City Authority is seeking 108.6 billion Ugandan shillings to facilitate various initiatives, including the construction of a landfill. And this will be decommissioning the Chitezi landfill and compensating victims of the Chitezi landfill collapse last year. Now, the Committee on Presidential Affairs, chaired by Alex Byarugaba, has established that poor waste management in the capital is exacerbated by a lack of appropriate disposal facilities, outdated technologies and insufficient funding. Now, KCCA requested 46.6 billion Ugandan shillings to construct the Wiyala landfill in PG district. The Committee on Presidential Affairs scrutinized the indicative budget allocations for the financial year 2025-2026 for various entities, including the Office of the President, State House, Office of the Prime Minister, Kampala City Council Authority, among others. Now, while presenting the report to the Budget Committee of Parliament, the Presidential Affairs Committee, chaired by Alex Byarugaba, informed members of Parliament that State House requires 88 billion shillings to facilitate the payment of the pending donations. Now, the committee established that unfulfilled presidential pledges were among the key challenges to budget execution for State House. According to the committee, State House also faces an issue with an aging fleet, and the maintenance costs are also further rising. The committee noted that 10 billion shillings is required in the next financial year to cater for transport equipment. And away from that now, Equity Bankers Leaders Program has transformed lives by mentoring and educating diverse talents. By doing so, they've also been empowering them to create lasting positive changes in the community. Now, the program aims to connect participants to the global opportunities, enabling them to bring international standards to the Ugandan market. The Equity Leaders Program, spearheaded by Equity Bank, is a transformative initiative which is aimed at nurturing change makers to drive positive impact in the communities they reside in. And of course, this is in line with the business world. Now, the program identifies, mentors and educates talented individuals from diverse backgrounds, empowering them to become agents of change in their communities of residence. Now, the program prioritizes inclusivity of embracing diverse talents, also including individuals with disabilities, showcasing that excellence knows no boundaries. Now, the participants receive comprehensive support, including education, internships, and mentorship extending through the university level. The program has celebrated its first cohort of over 20 graduates who excelled academically with first class and upper second class degrees. Well, away from that, we turn our focus onto the international scene as the President Donald Trump says he will impose tariffs February 1st on products from Canada, Mexico, and China, countries that together account for more than a third of the United States trade. When President Donald Trump did not follow through with his promise to immediately impose new tariffs on his first day in office, business executives and others who support international trade breathed a sigh of relief. Now, the relief was short-lived, however, because on Monday night, just hours after his inauguration speech, Donald Trump said he planned to put a 25% tariff on products from Canada, Mexico, and China beginning February 1st, claiming that the countries were allowing mass numbers of people to come to the United States. Now, on Tuesday evening, President Trump said he would also put an additional 10% tariff on Chinese products by the same date, accusing China of sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada, which was then crossing into the United States. Donald Trump's threats leave just 10 days before significant levies could go into effect in the United States' three largest trading partners, a move that could throw American diplomatic relationships and global chains into disarray. And we now turn our focus onto the Forex market to see how the Ugandan shilling has been faring on the exchange. These figures are courtesy of the central bank. Wednesday morning, the US dollar was buying at 3,669.05 while selling at 3,679.05. By midday, the US dollar was buying at 3,677.23 while selling at 3,687.23. Closing time saw the US dollar buy at 3,677.27 while selling at 3,687.27. The Great Britain pound opened buying at 4,532.60 while selling was 4,544.93. The euro was buying at 3,826.93 while selling was then at 3,837.34. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.43 while selling at 28.51 shillings. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.45 shillings while selling at 1.46 shillings. The South African rand was buying at 198.31 shillings while selling at 198.85 shillings. Well, those figures are courtesy of the central bank, and the updates come in 3 times daily. Well, that does it for business this week. I'll be back on Monday with Good Morning Uganda business updates. But on Saturday, 8:30 p.m., please do make sure to tune into UBC because we bring to you the Business Roundup, a show that is dedicated to giving you updates from the top headers of the business world within and out of the country. Good morning. This is KMU.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, baby, don't know. You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks Forex, Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the MyNGN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
It's our mission to secure your money.
Protecting your money is as important as earning it. It is for this reason that the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, DPF, was established by the government of Uganda to provide deposit protection to customers of regulated financial institutions. In the unlikely event that your commercial bank, credit institution or microfinance deposit-taking institution fails, the DPF will pay you up to 10 million Uganda shillings. Keep your personal information such as national identification number, mobile phone or an alternative bank account updated with your banker. Terms and conditions apply. For more information, contact DPF at Aha Towers, Plot 7 Lodell Road, Kampala. Call 0312 206 400 or visit our website at www.dpf.or.ug.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, every story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the Parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, it is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The Parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better.
PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
We're going to be talking about farming, but it's not me that's going to do that.
My name is Hava K. Luanga.
My name is Larry Charles K.
Let's go!
Mixed farm is a type of farming that involves growing crops and raising livestock. This is the spice garden and for the vegetables.
My first favorite spice has to be black pepper.
What's black pepper in Uganda?
Kamulali or mudagavu.
What? We're going to talk about the sechunga. We're going to see how big it is, as big as Larry's head. And then we're going to talk about the mangada. So we're going to get there. We have still so many farms to visit. And I would like to hear from you. This is the Little Farmer Show, and we are bringing coolness back to farming. See you!
Welcome to Good Morning Uganda, your go-to morning show to kickstart your day with all the latest updates.
Let's dive deep into issues that matter most to you.
In a world of stories waiting to be told, the headlines are your guide. Navigate the currents of news and knowledge with our daily updates of newspapers. Stay informed, stay empowered.
From the roar of the crowd to the thunder of victory, witness the drama unfold with our sports updates. Whether on the field or in the stands, join us as we celebrate the spirit of champions.
Rise with Good Morning Uganda, weekdays from 6:30 a.m.
His Excellency General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, assigned Uganda Prison Service a task to produce food and animal feeds. This was a directive of July 2022 to Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries to allocate land to Uganda Prison Service for food production. The allocation totaled to 50,000 acres, in which 30,000 acres is maize grain, 10,000 acres soya beans, and 10,000 acres sorghum. Areas allocated to Uganda Prison Service include Aswa Farm in Pade District, northern part of Uganda.
This is Aswa Farm, originally from Aswa Ranches, land which was handed over to Uganda Prison Service by Ministry of Agriculture for food security intervention, and which came in as a necessity by the government program. And this one arose out of the food scarcity that was happening in the country, and the government through MAI felt that we should produce food. And this intervention includes Uganda Prison Service.
Bush clearing here started on the 10th of October 2022. And it is progressing on well. Apparently, we have covered acreage of 1,000 acres, which is being prepared.
Uganda Prison Service embarked on an ambitious effort to transform access to Aswa group of prisons, and in so doing is bridging gap for local communities. Prison facilities within an agricultural complex.
I hope you're having a wonderful morning. This is Good Morning Uganda. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for joining us. Now, if you've been with us since when we started, thank you for sticking around. We appreciate you. You are the reason why we do this every single morning, Monday to Friday, 6:30 to 9 a.m. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, your host, and right about now we get into our agenda segment where we have conversations with opinion leaders and policy makers regarding different issues in our Ugandan society. Now, today we will be speaking about matters workers' rights, and I will be speaking to the Treasurer General from NOTU. Now, NOTU is currently the most representative labor center in Uganda, and it has about 38 labor union affiliates. NOTU is a non-profit labor organization that represents millions of Ugandan workers and works with labor unions and community groups in all the districts of Uganda. And if you're wondering what NOTU stands for, it is the National Organization of Trade Unions. So today, like I said, we are looking at workers' rights and collective bargaining. I'm speaking to the Treasurer General, the National Organization of Trade Unions, and that is Mr. Mauku Richard Moses. You're welcome to Good Morning Uganda.
Thank you so much, Madam Najuma. I want to take opportunity to appreciate Ugandans, especially the workers, for the tireless efforts they put in to contribute towards the development of Uganda's economy.
Well, thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
I hope it's treating you
and
well.
Happy New Year to all Ugandans. I'm appearing in UBC for the first time in 2025.
Yes.
I'm delighted to be here.
Indeed. We are happy to have you. Now, Mr. Mauku, let's get to the point of our discussion, workers' rights. But first of all, I've given a brief background about NOTU and what it stands for. But since you're here, I think it would do us a lot of good if you helped us understand the role and mission of the National Organization of Trade Unions in promoting workers' rights.
Okay, probably I would begin on the note of trying to define or describe what workers' unions mean or refer to.
Yes.
Workers' unions are referred to as the trade unions. They are also referred to as workers' organizations. They are also referred to as labor unions. All those phrases refer to the same thing, workers' organizations. And workers' organizations started very long time in the world, in the 18th century. And they have been shouldering on until I don't know when. They are continuous organizations. I would inform Ugandans, especially the workers, that if you want to understand what trade unions do or stand for, or the function of trade unions, it is derived from its description or definition. So a trade union, which is the same as labor union or workers' organization, is that organization that is representative, voluntary, continuous, independent, democratic, organization that is formed, run, managed, and financed by the workers themselves for the purposes of advancing, advocating, promoting, protecting, and defending the workers' social and economic interests at workplace through collective bargaining and using the relevant both local and international legal frameworks. That is the long prescription of workers' organizations or trade unions or labor unions.
Okay.
They are representative organizations for workers, and they are voluntary in nature. They are created or formed by workers themselves to administer or to ensure the function of advocating, advancing, promoting, protecting, and defending their socio-economic interests in the workplace. And that all is done through collective bargaining.
Okay. Now, collective bargaining is part of our discussion today. Please help us understand. What does that exactly mean?
Well, according to the international standards or laws, you know, one thing is we need to understand that all the laws that we have here are a creation of UN agencies. So all the labor laws that we have in the world start from the International Labour Organization. And they are discussed and adopted as conventions or protocols recommendations, which then flicker back or downward to the member states of the International Labour Organization. And as such, we have 190 conventions since the formation of the International Labour Organization in 1919. That is the year when all governments, employers organizations, and workers organizations that subscribe to UN agreed to formally or officially form an organization that brings the three tripartite partners, the workers, the employers, and governments together to regulate how they shall be relating in the areas of work in the different countries. So there are about now 9 core conventions out of the 190 conventions. 9 of these conventions, which are the pillars or the principal international standards from which we derive our local laws. These conventions are called core because they are a must to all of the nations that are member states to the International Labour Organization. So among them, we have 2 key principles or conventions. That is Convention 87, and that is the convention that describes the freedom, liberty of workers to associate, form, and or join trade unions of their choice. The other core convention among the 9 is the Convention 98, which is the convention that provides for the liberty of workers to collectively bargain. Collective bargaining refers to consultations, it refers to negotiations, engagements between workers, government, and employers to determine the workers' terms and conditions of employment in the different workplaces. It's that process where the workers' organization, the unions, engage with the employer to negotiate and determine the terms and conditions of employment in an agreement referred to as collective bargaining agreement. And even locally in Uganda, these processes are regulated. We have the National Constitution of the Republic of Uganda of 1995 as amended. In its Article 40 and 29, it provides for the right to freedom of association, including the freedom of the workers to join and or form trade unions of their choice. It also provides for the liberty of the workers, the freedom to negotiate the terms and conditions of employment under which they work. I don't know whether at UBC you have a collective bargaining agreement. If you don't, talk to me nicely, we can engage and start one.
Okay.
To have terms and conditions of employment specifically for the workers at UBC, so that your terms are definite and you negotiate the terms. It's not just the employer to dictate. You have that right and liberty to engage with your employer through the union to have your terms and conditions of employment determined by an agreement called collective bargaining agreement.
Yes.
But many organizations don't have these agreements for different reasons.
Do they have the appetite for these agreements to start with?
Well, they may not have an appetite, but you know, that is the reason these agreements are provided for by law. But one reality is, before we blame the employers, in most cases we would be gaining with ourselves.
Yes, the employees.
Yes. If you are aware that it is your right, then pursue it. It is not the employer who is supposed to come to you and say, you people, you don't have a collective bargaining. Do you want one? No. It is our duty as employees to pursue these rights because they are your rights. So many times the employees themselves don't want to believe that they have these rights.
Do they not want to believe that they have these
Or they
rights,
don't know
or
that
they don't know?
don't. Yeah, many of the Ugandan employees do not know that they have these rights.
I think
but
that's
even when
they know.
we inform them, because of the hard times, people first ask one thing. In Uganda they say "Mfunirawa." You get, and you know, by definition, workers' organizations are meant to be managed and financed by workers. So these member organizations, by law, you are supposed to contribute or subscribe monthly as a member for purposes of managing the functionality of your organization.
Okay.
So when people hear of that contribution, they begin to say, these people just eat our money, they won't do anything.
Okay.
But you can, I must assure you, the organizations where we represent workers,
yes,
there is a very huge difference. Because workers who are organized don't speak about minimum wage because it is determined by negotiation. And even when the government is pronounced a minimum wage, it is not useful to these workers who are organized. But it is mainly for all the workers of the nation, because as trade unions, we represent all workers. In policy, at policy level, we represent everybody. So we want the minimum wage to cover for all the persons in employment. But those who are already having collective bargaining agreements, the collective bargaining agreements determine minimum wage. And this minimum wage keeps changing each time you engage with the employers to negotiate. I think you can get the difference.
Yes, I do get
and
the
besides, we have agreements which are even 100 sections talking about different aspects of work life and terms and conditions of employment, ranging from the time you get into employment, the time you stay in employment, and the time you lose or leave employment. There are three aspects that unions negotiate. Entry into employment, stay into employment, and exit, because the three things must happen to everybody in employment.
Yes.
So we determine the terms and conditions and how you get into employment, and what are your entitlements, what are your obligations, what are your rights while in this employment, and at the time of cessation of this employment, what are your entitlements, what are your benefits. I hope I'm understood.
Yes.
Yeah. So it ranges from that whole range of work life. What, you know, in government workers, I don't know for UBC, are you pensionable or you are gratuity people? What do you earn every day as you work? Public service people,
gratuity.
Public service, they earn every day they work, they earn pension.
Yes.
So in the private sector, each day you work, you also earn gratuity. But who determines how much? Even now you may not be aware or sure what your gratuity is.
But
and
in the
it can also,
private
if it
sector,
is determined by the company, without your involvement, it can keep changing, even for the worse, where the company can sit one time in the boardroom and say, we had given ourselves gratuity of this percentage, or we had given ourselves gratuity maybe 1 month pay for each year in employment, but now the company is not doing well. So by merely a minute arising from a meeting, a board meeting, they will change it. And you are not there to defend it.
You just receive the news.
Yes, so they will tell you that it changed from this to this. Otherwise, the law requires that you are supposed to sit together and determine not only gratuity, but very many other things that apply to an employee.
Now, Mr. Maoko, you did at some point touch on hard times, and I would like to look at hard times in this case. Employees sometimes may be aware of their rights, but then do you think sometimes they do not go, they do not push to join labor unions at their workplace, to organize themselves because they do not want to stir the pot, or to, in literal sense, try to disorganize the hand that feeds them. Have you met such reasoning as you deal with employees from different companies?
Well, it is a matter of not being aware of how these things are done.
Okay.
Trade unions are not a bad animal to deal with, but people fear trade unions because of the trade union history, the way trade unions started internationally and even in Uganda. And where those days, there was a notion that trade unions don't study, trade unions don't go to school, and it was rare to find a general secretary who is either a degree holder, because there is that mixing of levels when at a workplace. We don't look at how much you studied. We look at what competencies do you have to lead the workers. So there used to be a time when negotiations were this type of scenario where people get into the boardroom and they say, we want this, if you don't give us this, we are going for a strike tomorrow. And actually it happens. So many employers still have that mentality, the mindset that maybe when they come, they will only ask for salary raise, which is not the case.
Because now I look at women looking for areas where they can breastfeed from, maternity leave.
All these are these general terms and conditions that we negotiate, determine. We do not compel employers to do what they can't, because the capacity to meet these obligations differ from employer to employer.
That's right.
So these negotiations look into the realities of a company, and we agree on what is possible at that given time for a given period. When you get into the organizations where we have collective bargaining, we have a section on benefits or privileges to female employees, and it includes a number of things: having special uniforms when they are pregnant, having the right to or not to work night shift when their pregnancy is beyond 5 months, and when their babies are below 1 year, they choose which shift to work. And those things are predetermined. It's not, there are companies where when you get pregnant, you get fired. Yes. When you go to deliver, you never come back. So those things happen where you have no union, where you have no collective bargaining agreement. But where unions exist, these terms are predetermined, negotiated, in a manner that leaves the employer continue to earn his or her profit while not suffocating the person that is employed. So those are the scenarios. However, the hard times are many. Many, employers are fond of this thing of, there are so many people who have no employment in Uganda.
We can fire and hire.
We can fire all of you today, and I will get 1,000 applications the following day.
I think there is no employee under the sun that has not had that statement.
Definitely, but it is a useless and stupid statement. Because you have an employee who has served you 5 years. Don't you think this person has gained a lot of skill and competence on your job? That you will keep training people. And employers who do such actually don't realize the profits they want, or the business could even realize.
From
because
the
they are
of
busy training people every other time. They become a training ground because they are thinking that there are so many Ugandans that you can employ. Instead of building the people that they have to acquire enough skills to offer the best services. But you will find organizations where, let me mention one, Sheraton here. We had to agree with the company in a CBA that when you make 25 years at Sheraton, leave.
Leave?
Yes.
Why?
Because you are old. It is a hotel, it requires
what
people to run.
What if I joined when I was 20 and it's 25
bring your
years,
son
I'm now
or bring
45.
Your daughter.
But I've seen Sheraton with older waiters, older gentlemen.
It's not there.
Anymore?
It's not there.
Not
25
anymore.
years in service is good enough for you to have. So we
but
provide...
what if I've not yet reached the retirement age?
We have retirement age in different forms in the agreements. We have early retirement, voluntary retirement. Because if you are a waiter and you are 50 years, you can't be that swift like a boy who left school yesterday.
Okay, I get that, but where you're negotiating for them to leave after serving for 25 years, how about they work in different departments?
I am telling you.
Do you know?
It is
do you know what I'm looking at? Because I
thing?
feel like young people, not young per se, but I feel like people that still have the energy to serve are being pushed out of the workforce because they have served a given number of years. Think about it.
It is reality. We
Okay.
have tested these things.
Okay.
The output of a waiter who is 50 years old
It's not the same
is
as a
not. It
25
can't be
year old.
comparable to somebody who is 25 years. It is improving service, but also preparing this person for retirement. You don't need to retire when you are too old to do anything. When you make 25 years at Sheraton, you are going to get gratuity of a lot of money.
Okay.
So you go and use this money to begin doing work
When you
outside.
still have some energy.
When you still have some energy. And workers willingly do it. Because you are not being stopped to work without a package. But you are being asked to retire early so you can engage in other things.
Anyway,
when you
if
have
there is
money.
gratuity, I think it's not
Definitely,
that bad.
it's about gratuity.
Yes.
Because you can make a mistake that deprives you of that gratuity. When you are 54, waiting for 1 year. But you have served and you have become inefficient over the time. So it is all about what is right and good for both the employer and the worker.
Okay.
That is what collective bargaining does. It is to make it easy for both parties. Whereas, and you also have to look at the interest of the organization at all times, because what brings a union together with an employer is the existence of this work. So the employer's interest is also paramount. The negotiations look at the employer because there must be continuity. A union can only thrive where there is an employer. So we don't make decisions that deprive the employer of that right to make certain decisions. But that leaves continuity to prevail so that we can continue in employment. But many times an employer will be looking at how do I best benefit from this moniker here.
They want to milk the cow over and over without giving it the necessary nutrients.
Our function is, like I said, it is to advocate, promote, protect, and defend the interests of the vulnerable employee, and through negotiation. So I think it works, only that there are many people who lack this information, and either the employers are thinking the unions are coming to make or cause trouble in my organization, which is not the case. And even when we make trouble, anyway, if it is done according to the law, then we are doing the right thing.
All right. Well, we are having a conversation on the workers' rights and collective bargaining, and I am speaking to Mr. Mauku from the National Organization of Trade Unions. He's their Treasurer General. Now, we have looked at collective bargaining and what it means, but I would like for us to now talk about, to understand workers' rights. But before we do that, you can join the conversation. The number is 0709-602-592. Send a WhatsApp message or a direct message. Leave your name and where you're texting from. Then I will be able to share your message. It could be an opinion, but also it could be a question to Mr. Mauku. He has the knowledge and the experience to answer any of your queries. So feel free to WhatsApp us on the number that we have displayed on your screen. Now, Mr. Mauku, let's try to understand workers' rights. What are some of the fundamental rights of workers as enshrined in labor laws and international conventions?
There are several workers' rights, and they are written, when you look at the Labor Unions Act specifically, it provides for the functionality of trade unions, the Labor Unions Act. We also have the Employment Act, which speaks volumes about the rights of the persons in employment. And these rights are derived from obligations. So these laws provide for the obligations, and then the rights. Workers have the right to work. The right to work. They have the right to safe and healthy workplace. And there is also a law. Actually, there are two laws that speak about our lives at work. And that is the Occupational Safety and Health Act. That is a preventive law. How do we prevent ourselves from harm at workplace? How do we get to prevent ourselves from the hazards that exist in the workplace? There are various hazards. How do we make sure that the workplace is safe for me to work? But you have always heard about industrial accidents where people meet accidents while in employment and are injured. Some of the injuries are grave, others are minor. Then we have the remedial law. That is the Workers' Compensation Act, where you have not prevented yourself from an accident and it occurs. Then the Workers' Compensation Act should apply. How are you going to be treated during the injury or arising from the injury? If in case you lose life, what then happens? If it is loss of capacity, incapacitation arising from that accident, what then happens? But it is also important that as workers we need to understand what is an industrial accident. An industrial accident in the law is defined to mean or to cover any accident that a worker meets
while in the line of work.
No. 1 hour before you report to work, but while you are going to work. When you meet an accident while you are going to work, 60 minutes before, but en route workplace, it is also an industrial accident.
60 minutes or
That
even
is 1
within
hour.
the 60 minutes?
Within 60 minutes.
Okay, okay.
So it is important that workers must always sign in when they arrive on duty. So it is known that I am meant to arrive at UBC at 8. So when you meet an accident while on the way coming to work, before you arrive, it is also considered an industrial accident. And that is also this accident or injury that you incur during work. And it is also the injury or accident that you meet 1 hour after work going back home. That is what they call an industrial accident. But we are struggling with people. When a worker gets an accident on a border while coming, they say, no, he did not get an accident here.
But I was on my way to work.
Exactly, because they don't know these laws. Then compensation, not every accident is compensatable. They compensate an injury that the accident has caused you, the incapacitation that accident has caused your life. That is why it is rated in percentage. And many workers still don't know that you may even lose life but get less money than the person who has only lost a finger. Because payment is done according to how much you earn yourself. So if my salary is 200,000 shillings, even when I get 80% of the injury, incapacitation, the money might be less than the person who earns 20 million.
Why? Let's say I lost a limb, I lost
Yes.
an arm.
So payment for compensation is against your salary.
No matter how bad, how dire the accident
Yes,
could have been.
it is in percentage, this percentage of your salary.
Hey.
So
Now,
there are so
where
many
does that-
dynamics that...
Now, Mr. Mauku,
Yes,
where
please.
does that leave factory workers that we know do not earn so much? They earn per day. I've had, and by the way, you could actually even expound on that, but I have had allegations that some earn 5,000 a day,
Even less.
Or even less.
Yes.
So if I earn that, how is this percentage going to be calculated? And because most of them are actually the ones that are in line to getting the dire accidents while at work, maybe losing a limb, an arm, a leg, and maybe on their way to work or from work, but mostly while at work.
The best thing would be for workers to be unionized, to organize themselves, because unions know what to do and how to go about it. The other thing is, if you are not in the union and you get into such situations, at least go for services from the Ministry of Labor. They have labor officers who understand how to make these computations. Otherwise, most times these workers are either cheated or are not even paid at all. They are not even treated by the company. When it is mandatory in the law that when you get an accident which is industrial in nature, or when you get an industrial disease, there are two things, by the way.
Yes.
An industrial disease and industrial accident. They are two different things.
Yes.
You are supposed to be treated by this company until the doctor declares your permanent status that this accident will have caused you or the disease will have caused you. Then they compute for you the compensation that you must secure. The only problem, like I told you, is depending on how much you earn with this organization. But there are also aggravated damages that the labor officers compute. In case of death, they will charge you for things at the going rates, either burial expenses and all those things. They will help you compute. So it is important that you have somebody who represents you. And unions are act like lawyers for the workers. And the only payment you make is your 2% of your salary. Even when the union can spend 20 million on an employee who contributes 6,000 shillings. Because that is the obligation of the union. If it is something that either requires to take the company to court or to represent this worker in court, it is the union's obligation to meet the legal charges for that employee.
Now let's talk about
irrespective of what she contributes.
Okay, let's talk about the amount of money that the people have to contribute to the union. What's the criteria for that? And
it is written in the law. Union dues is written in the law. Section 49 of the Employment Act provides for union dues and how this money is supposed to be contributed. It is one of the statutory deductions in law. So like you contribute to NSSF, you also contribute to
the
pay is a tax.
Pay is a tax, but the way it is deducted,
it
could be the same way.
It's one of those statutory deductions that are provided for in the law, and people contribute according to the union constitution. But the law guides that you should charge between 1% and 3%. So the union in its constitution provides the percentage to charge. There are unions that charge 1%, there are those that charge 2%, and there are also those that charge 3%.
All right. Well, we are looking at workers' rights and collective bargaining, and I am speaking to Mr. Mauku Richard Moses, who is the Treasurer General, National Organization of Trade Unions. Now, I have some comments coming through, and this one says, "Good morning, UBC. Most Ugandans are not aware of these rights, and so they are ever losing and are cheated. Secondly, the laws can't be enforced so much because the resource owners always make the choice of what to do for workers, even if it infringes on their rights." And he adds that most of the private sector players do not give anything to workers, not even allowance or gratuity. What's your comment on that?
My comment and advice
is
that we need to look out for these unions. We get organized in the unions because the union is not paid by this employer. The union only comes to represent your interests, and during the representation of your interests, among the other things that the union will do is to secure an agreement with the employer to determine the terms and conditions under which you are going to offer labor.
Okay.
And those are some of the terms and conditions that the collective bargaining agreements determine. What are your entitlements as an employee during employment? What are the allowances that must be given to you? But it should also fit within the pockets of the employer. You know, some of the things that are discussed or negotiated there, these agreements are a motivational factor for these employees. If an employer is interested in quality, it is important that you motivate the persons that work for you.
Okay. There is another comment. It's from, please leave your names. It's important for us to know who we are talking to. He didn't leave his name, but he says, what does the law say about elections in NOTU and its affiliates? And are these elections held regularly? Come to workers, MPs. Looks like it's the same people, Pakalast.
Well, elections are also determined in accordance with the law, but also the constitutions of the organizations.
Okay.
The law provides that workers' organizations are meant to change leadership after every 5 years.
Do they, though?
They do. Changing leadership may not require changing faces. But
someone can be re-elected.
Yes, you can get re-elected many times.
You don't have term limits.
No, there are no term limits so far. So that is why you see some MPs repeating, coming, but we have been dropping. We have dropped many. Every election that we go into for workers, members of parliament, at least we drop one. So even this time we shall drop. So you are not going to get to see all the 5 back there. No, I bet you will have 1 or 2 giving way for new entrants.
Okay.
Because that is not the team we started with in 1996.
Okay.
They have kept changing.
All right. And actually, speaking about workers' representatives, the Electoral Commission is updating the National Voters Register, and this is being done up until the 10th of February 2025. So, and the elections of special interest groups, including workers' representatives and youth representatives, are in June of this year. So if you're interested in having a say in who leads you or represents you, this is the time. Go ensure that your name is in the National Voters Register, and get prepared to choose your representatives come June. That's why we call it the 2025-2026 general election. I thought I should mention that.
Very good. They need to get prepared for that upcoming event.
Yes.
It always disorganizes unions. Sometimes at this way they get too much into politics because it is a preserve. You will only get workers who are organized, participating in all these programs to do with the government.
Yeah.
Sometimes people have complained the caliber of people representing workers in the NSSF board. That is we are the organized workers who are supposed to represent even professors. So if you want to represent workers, join a union.
Join a union.
Simply that.
Yes. And this one says, hello, it's a... I think this one is sending the message to the wrong group. Fred from Barara says, thank you for the program, and he's following. Thank you so much for watching, Fred. Now, Mr. Maukas, we've come to the end of our conversation, but I would like to hear your parting shots when it comes to the mechanisms that NOTU is using to engage employers and policymakers on issues that are currently affecting workers.
Well, first and foremost is as NOTU and the affiliated labor unions, we want to appeal to government to ensure that that government provides the necessary logistics, especially to the ministry responsible for labor. We have had issues with the ministry responsible for labor in terms of inadequate capacity. There are few staffs in the Ministry of Labor. When it comes to issues of inspection, we have too few inspectors. So our appeal to government is to try and step up the workforce in the ministry. If you may remember, last year during Labor Day, we asked government to try and deal with the issue of casualization of labor. It is too much everywhere. The workers of Uganda are not benefiting, especially from these investors who come here and deceive government that they have brought a lot of money, but they are only milking the company, the country, and the workers who are in these factories are merely getting peanuts.
Yes.
With very poor terms and conditions of employment due to casualization. There are no permanent employees there. People are earning 5,000, 6,000 per day and working for 12 hours, which is wrong. So we want to appeal to government to implement the laws effectively, the labor laws. The other thing that we are doing is actually to engage with the relevant government agencies to ensure that the right things are done. There is also a pending collective bargaining agreement for the public service unions. Public service unions engaged with the government to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement, but it was not fully signed on the part of government. So we want to appeal to government once again to ensure that that process is completed so that the public servants also have terms and conditions under which they operate and work, which is negotiated as per the provisions of the different laws.
Okay.
I also want to appeal to the workers. The workers need to join labor unions within their sectors. If we are to effectively support and help and promote their interests, it becomes a bit difficult for us to help people who are not our members. We help them at policy level, or we can also use certain provisions in the law, but it's not mandatory.
It's easier.
It's easier for those that are already organized. So I want to encourage workers of Uganda to get organized into the different unions, so the unions not can superintend over the other unions, to ensure that we help more and more workers.
Okay.
Even those in the informal sector, they have their liberty to organize themselves into the union, and we have so many unions that actually organize from the informal sector. So we want to continuously encourage workers to join unions so that we fight together.
All right. Join a union today. If you're a worker, it's easier for you to be represented. And I believe workers normally have issues like unfair dismissal from work, sexual harassment for the women, and many other issues that they are grappling with, but you cannot fight alone.
You can't.
It's really hard to fight alone. Yes. Well, thank you so much for everyone that has contributed to this conversation, and for everyone that has been watching. We appreciate you. I've been speaking to Mr. Mauku Richard Moses, who is the Treasurer General, National Organization of Trade Unions. And I'm Olive Monica Najuma. Thank you so much for being with us. Stick around, because up next is sports updates.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information.